Game time decisions for Ohio State's home game against Western Kentucky. Big favorites in this game as they have been the first two, but they haven't covered, haven't looked exactly as efficient and explosive in the combination of that as they want to on offense. Steven, what is your game time decision for the Buckeyes, or I suppose for the Hilltoppers, on Saturday?
I don't care about what the Hilltoppers do, man. I've been saying it all week. And regardless of the production, because we've talked about it, Western Kentucky might get the ball out quickly, so this also just might not be a game to get sacks. But I think it is a good game to see the usage of the defensive ends and the defensive tackles. I think we can get that much out of it because the passing situations are going to be there even if the numbers aren't there. So I just want to see how Larry Johnson's using guys. We know who the starters are going to be, at least on the outside. He always throws a little wrinkle at us in the interior, but we do know that JT and Jack are the starters on the edge. Ty Hamilton will probably start on the interior, and either Mike Hall or Tyleik Williams, who's actually played the most snaps of any of the defensive tackles so far, will start on the interior. And I just want to see the rhythm of how Larry Johnson gets into everything, because that's going to matter a week from now when they're going up against a more traditional offense with two guys, one guy who's a bona fide for sure top 10 pick and another guy who might be a first rounder or a second rounder or something like that. So I want to get out ahead of that and see how is Larry Johnson using these defensive ends, especially in moments where, as they call in football, money downs.
Andrew, what is your game time decision for Saturday?
What does the offensive line rotation look like, if any? If there is a rotation. We talked about the offensive line in one of our videos. This is a big week for them because we kind of mentioned this for months since I've been here, that you kind of have a mini season going into the month of September. You have 3 games, and then you have the big one at the end of the month in Notre Dame. And you can be blocking the right guys, you can be doing the right things, but if you're not successfully blocking those guys against Western Kentucky, against Indiana, against Youngstown State, what's going to happen against Notre Dame? So this is the week where, you heard it from Coach Fry. You've got to be violent. You've got to be physical. And how quick are they to try and experiment like this? Because if we are doing this at 7:46 p.m. on Wednesday the 13th. If we are doing this at 7:46 p.m. on Wednesday the 20th, saying, "Oh, gee, I don't know, is the offensive line finally going to turn it around?" Who do you think they're more likely to turn it around against? Western Kentucky or Notre Dame? I think so. It's pretty clear to me that the offensive line, this is the week you have to turn it around. And if you start to get those penalties in the first quarter again, if you start to have mental mistakes, or you're just not blocking anybody in the first quarter, how quick do you come with the hook? Because you're going to have to try something, because you can't go into you can't take your offensive line to South Bend and expect, frankly, to win if they're not blocking anybody, if they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So I think it's the offensive line.
One of the things I've been harping on all week is the secondary and how much of a test I think this is, because I know people are concerned about the defensive line and the pass rush, and that I think is next week's big concern. This week, though, this Western Kentucky offense last year there were 2 teams that tied for the lead in the nation of plays of 20 yards or more. One of them was Georgia, and the other one was Western Kentucky. And Georgia was pretty good, and Western Kentucky knows how to move the ball too, and it knows how to get big chunk plays. It was also, and I think, the top 3 in yards of plays of 30 or more yards. They were in the top 10 in plays of 40 or more yards. Like, they can get big chunks, and we know how vulnerable Ohio State was to that. Like, that was the Achilles heel of this defense last year, not the pass rush. And I think this is the week where this secondary has to step up and show that it has the discipline to play against a team that attacks you in a way that it ultimately tries to take advantage of your lack of discipline with the way that they run this offense. And if guys are getting out of place, if guys aren't following their assignments, if guys are not living up to their responsibilities, this is the kind of offense that I know it's Conference USA, I know it's Group of 5, they can take advantage of it. They can put a lot of points on the board. And this offense right now, the Ohio State offense, frankly, we can't assume that they're going to hold up against that sort of pressure too, if they're the ones having to go out and win a shootout at this point. So I'm not saying it's going to get to that point, though. I think this secondary is better than last year. I think we've definitely seen signs of it early on, but I think this is the week where you prove it. Like, do you go in and are you disruptive at the point of the catch? Are you maybe getting some takeaways, that sort of thing, to show that this is a kind of that last year's problems, the explosive touchdowns, are in the past. So even more than that, it's about keeping guys in front of you and not letting them get the big plays that can flip a field. listen to the game preview from Buckeye Talk, wherever you can find podcasts, and get our text, 614-350-3315, because if there's actual game time decisions right before the game, whether that's players who may or may not play or things that we're seeing happening down on the field, we'll be texting it to you straight there from cleveland.com.